So Peter, now you get to speak in English.
Thank you. Or in Serbian or in Albanian. Now, on this question, Stefan, that's up to the interpretation. As I said, we are basically seeing very positively any initiative that could help us to move ahead, that could support the EU facilitated dialogue. We've been saying all along that we are facilitator of this dialogue between the two parties, but any help from all the partners which are sharing the same objective is welcome. Because in the Western Balkans, we have the shared objectives with the United States, and it was mentioned also yesterday during the video conference between the EU foreign ministers and Secretary Pompeo, where the EU side was very strong and very clear in expressing full support and confidence in the EU SR Lajčák and his efforts to restart the dialogue, and where we were stating both sides that the Western Balkans is area where we pay a lot of attention because we want to help the stabilization of the region, the reform processes in the region, because in the end, these countries aspire to join the European Union. The future of these countries is European, and the road to this future, or to make this future reality for the people, leads through the EU facilitated dialogue. So whatever can help to move it forward is a positive thing, and we see it as a positive support of this EU facilitated dialogue. And on the other part of your question, if they agree something which might not be acceptable, etc., that's speculation. I mean, both parties are very well aware that their future is European and that they are aspiring to join the European Union. So I don't think they would agree something that would prevent them to achieve this strategic objective, which is expression of the desires of their populations. They are close to Europe. They want to be in Europe. So we would assume that they do everything that brings them closer to the EU.
Thank you, Peter. I see one hand raised, I suppose on external relations, Jayakina. Press.
Yes, do you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, okay. Peter, from your words, we have kind of an impression that the American envoy is only backing your work, while yesterday it was so obvious that you were caught by surprise and you had no idea that the meeting of 27th of June will happen. So is it fair to say that there are now two parallel processes of dialogue or normalization of relations, one in Washington and one in Brussels?
Thank you. As I said, interpretation is free for everyone to choose, depends on how you want to see the events and the sequence of events and the actions. What is important for us, apart from announcements, is implementation on the ground, follow-up to anything that is announced. So the real situation, the real results on the ground. When you look at the efforts of the EU in the region, I think we can say that there are really sustainable and firm and concrete and tangible results, apart from the fact that over the last 20 years, we invested more than 2 billion euros in Kosovo specifically. So this is one concrete example and sign of what we are doing and how determined we are to bring the Kosovo closer to its aspiration of about European future. And what we are doing is focusing on the EU facilitated dialogue. Kosovo and Serbia know that the only way for them to move forward towards the EU is by normalizing their relations. When they started this process in 2011, it was facilitated by the EU. The EU is facilitating the dialogue right from the start, and we continue to be determined to do it. This role, as long as it's required by both parties. Whatever they do, apart from this EU facilitated dialogue, is their own decision. And if it can be conducive to move them forward towards the objective, which is the normalization, and living up to their European ambitions, then it's only positive. So, but the role of the EU was very clearly defined as the EU facilitator of the dialogue. This is what we are doing and trying to help the parties to move forward. And this is the reason why the EU SR for this region was nominated and for this topic of the dialogue. And with the full backing of the whole EU, is doing his work very intensively and right now even on the ground, because he is scheduled to arrive to Pristina anytime soon, I mean this afternoon.
Thank you, Peter. I think we have some You have a follow-up.
I have a follow-up. Just to clarify, Peter, while you are facilitating the dialogue, Americans are brokering an agreement, which is highly likely to happen on June 27. Now, after this agreement, what happens to Brussels dialogue? Are you continuing business as usual, no matter what happens to Washington, or two processes are interconnected?
Peter.
Press the speak button. Yes, I just did. So I wouldn't go into speculations into what happens in Washington next week or the week after. As I said, whatever the announcements, what is important is the result, the final agreement or whatever is agreed, whatever is being done in terms of follow-up and developments after the announcement. That's one thing. But then, as I said, the EU is facilitating the dialogue right from the start. The European future of Kosovo leads through the European facilitated or EU facilitated dialogue. There's no way around it. So whatever might be agreed on the sidelines or on the sides or in different formats, etc., will feed into the EU facilitated dialogue because this is the main platform for both Serbia and Kosovo to get closer to their final agreement, normalization of relations, and moving ahead on their European path with the objective to join the EU eventually.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move to Christian.